Welcome to the Beat Reporter's Inbox on MLB.com, presented by Edward Jones. I'm Greg Johns, MLB.com reporter, with Jesse asking the questions today. Jesse, what do we have first?
So the first question is from Maxwell. What will happen when Robinson Cano returns in a few months? Does it make sense to shift D. Gordon back to center field for 6 weeks when our defense is playing so well with him at second?
Maxwell, that's a great question because everybody's asking it right now. Obviously, the Mariners playing very well since Cano went on the suspended list. They're 23-10 without him. Doesn't mean they don't need Cano back in that lineup and that bat in the middle of the order. So I think when he comes back, we'll see Cano at second base a lot. But they also need to keep D fresh at second, since when they get to the postseason, if they do, Cano is ineligible to play. So they'll mix and match there in that last 6 weeks. I think you'll see some of Gordon back in center field. He's proven he's willing to do whatever it takes for this team. But Cano can play second. I think they'll play him a little bit at first, maybe a little bit at DH, keep that bat in the lineup, keep D fresh. I think we'll see a lot of mix and match that last 6 weeks, and it'll be very interesting to see how they play that out.
Cool. This next question's from Scott. Mitch Haniger quickly became my new favorite Mariners player last year. Why did the Diamondbacks give him up to the Mariners? Maybe the better question is, why did they let him go at all?
Haniger's been a godsend for the Mariners, no doubt. But I think to answer that question, you have to look back at when the deal was made. Haniger was a young, he was 25-year-old who hadn't really been in the major leagues. 6 weeks, I think, his previous season with the Diamondbacks. He was an older prospect, AAA Player of the Year that year for the Diamondbacks, but they didn't really have a spot for him. And they trade he and Seager to the Mariners for Taijuan Walker, and I think that's the key to the deal. I think you have to look at how much starting pitching is worth and team control. At the time, Taijuan Walker, a young pitcher, a lot of team control left. And unfortunately, with the elbow surgery this year, that hasn't been able to live up to his end of the deal for the Diamondbacks. Haniger and Seager have been obviously awesome, but at the time of the deal, Seager had only 2 years left on his deal and was going to be a free agent. The Mariners re-upped him for another 5, so a good move on their part. And Haniger's been nothing but good for the Mariners. Really been amazing out there and really an all-star candidate in right field. So that really has turned out to be a real good deal for the Mariners and one of the driving forces in where they're going this year. But to me, I guess it shows the price of good starting pitching. Taijuan Walker was an up-and-coming guy, and to get those kind of players, you got to give up a good young starter.
RP says, with the amount of games Ichiro played and his current position with the Mariners, would he be entitled to a World Series ring if the Mariners were to earn one?
If Ichiro gets a World Series ring, there'll be a lot of happy people in the Mariners organization. Obviously, that's a question the Mariners would love to have to answer, and I think the definite answer is an easy yes. World Series rings are given out pretty freely. I know last year the Astros gave out, I think, over 1,000 World Series rings to former players, to front office staff, to people who work at the stadium. So a team wins the World Series, they're pretty happy to give out those World Series rings. I'm sure Ichiro will be very high at the top of the list. And he did. He was actually part of the team this year and played games. Anybody who plays games is not only going to be eligible for a World Series ring, but some World Series money when it comes to the end of it.
Ed says, how is Hisashi Iwakuma's injury progression coming along, and will he be ready to help with the final push for the postseason?
Ed, another question I get a lot. Iwakuma is right now down in Arizona working on it. He throws. This guy throws every day. He signed on a minor league deal to come back after the shoulder surgery last September, and he has been working very, very hard to come back. He is not ready. They want to get him out into some rehab games soon, but the last I heard just today, in fact, is a little bit of a, I don't know, they don't want to call it setback too much. Wasn't able to send him out yet on a rehab outing to start pitching in games. He's still throwing in Arizona at the team facility. They're hoping to get him into some games here shortly. I don't think they count on Iwakuma being any part of the push down the stretch. He would be a bonus if he came back and was ready. I don't think that's anything they can plan on right now. But certainly what Iwakuma's done for this franchise, everybody would love to see him get a chance sometime to get to pitch again.
Ben says, do you think that the Mariners organization feels that there are positions we can upgrade at the trade line? If so, where do you feel is our biggest area of need?
Yeah, to me, the trade deadline, it's interesting. We're still 6 weeks away. So I know it's a great question, and I think a lot of teams think about where do they want to go as the deadline approaches. Interestingly, the Mariners, Jerry DiPoto, Trader Jerry, has already made a big deal this year, getting Alex Colomé and Denard Spann a deal well before the deadline. He saw a need for bullpen help and outfield help, went out and made a deal. So Jerry never afraid to trade. But I think they've got some time here. I think before the deadline, another 5 or 6 weeks, and I think they'll wait and see how things play out until then. Starting pitching could be a need, but right now, hey, they got 5 guys going strong. You know, Wade LeBlanc pitching very well. Marco Gonzales at the back of that rotation have been very good. So I think they'll see how those guys pan out over the next 5 or 6 weeks. If they're still throwing strong, is everybody healthy? Is Paxton still healthy? How's Felix coming along? You know, then you can make a decision. Do you need to go out and get a starter or not? If not, the bullpen they can always bolster. So I think they'll add pitching. I think it's a question of where and kind of when as they get toward that deadline.
Matthew says, do you think the Mariners have the pieces to get Cole Hammels?
That's a tough one. The Mariners farm system is not overflowing with big ready major league ready prospects. So it's tough for them to get in some of those deals at the deadline for teams that can compete and drive up the price. So that's a tough one. They're not going to give up pieces of the current major league roster to make a move. So you'd be looking for a prospect deal, and that'll be tough. I don't see them making that kind of deal.
This question is from Lior. Any thoughts on potentially adding an impact player at center? Feels like the last spot in the lineup that could possibly be upgraded. I love Heredia, but the Mariners are not getting enough offensively from that position.
Yeah, I don't see him going and getting a center fielder, partly because of what we talked about earlier with Gordon. When Cano comes back, Gordon's going to go out and play quite a bit of center field. So it'd be kind of a logjam if they went on, and I don't think they're going to go spend a ton, give up young guys to get a center fielder for a short period of time. And they kind of see D as the guy there in the long term. So we're kind of dealing with an influx situation now. So they went out and got Span, who can play left field and allow him to put Haniger in center when needed. And Heredia, they love out there defensively. So I think they're pretty happy with that group. They'd like to see Heredia kind of get back on track with a bat, but he's been as good as they can be out there in center field defensively.
Jeremy says, what do you think they will do with King Felix if he keeps slumping?
That's another great question. Felix has been very good 2 of his last 3 starts, and everybody knows what Felix can do when he's healthy and when he's fully capable. He's not the Felix of old. I think what you want now is a guy who can be a competitive starter, get you in 6 or 7 innings, as he's done 2 of the last 3 very well. So to me, Felix has to pitch smart. He's got to come out with the energy that he showed here in his last couple starts, and I think he can be a guy that can certainly help that rotation. He's not going to be the Cy Young Felix. I think that's pretty obvious at this point, but he can be a key part of a rotation. I think people just have to keep in perspective, I think, where he is in his career, and so does he, frankly. I think he needs to learn. Maybe, I'm not saying he's going to be Wade LeBlanc, but look at how Wade LeBlanc pitches, uses his stuff. Wade LeBlanc throws, mid-80s and can be effective. Felix has that stuff. I mean, he has a great changeup. He still has the movement on his pitches. He's got to pitch smart. He's got to really locate, and when he does that, he can still be very effective.
Jeff says, what is Ben Gamel's future with the Mariners?
Gamel's future with the Mariners, I think, is a lot like his present. He's been a guy who can play left and right and very effectively. They love Ben and what he can bring. Right now, he's kind of platooning in left, but this is a guy that's been hitting about 300. When he plays, he hits, and I think he's going to be that kind of that corner guy that can be your 3rd or 4th outfielder, and I think he's a big part of the Mariners' future.
And from Matt, any consideration to dropping Seager in the batting order?
Matt, I think you're looking at where Seager's at right now. He has been struggling at the plate. He's still a run producer. I mean, he's on pace for close to 30 home runs and 95 RBIs. So this is a guy who's getting it done, but his average is low. And that Kyle's traditionally been a guy that's come on in the second half. So I think they need him to come around. There's no question. I think eventually, if he doesn't lift, he's hitting about 220 right now. They could drop him down a little bit. I don't know that that's something they're looking to do right now. He is an experienced guy. Kyle's consistency has been really his key over his 7 years in the major league. So I think you kind of bet on a guy's baseball card and what he does over the course of his career. Kyle has been that guy. I suppose eventually if he doesn't hit better than 220, they probably do make a change, but it's not one they want to make. They would love to see Kyle get back to being what Kyle Seager can be.
Tom says, have you tried the Grasshoppers at Safico?
Tom, I'm not a Grasshopper guy. I like burgers and hot dogs. I'm going to leave the Grasshoppers to somebody else. I've heard they're excellent, but I'm not eating bugs.
Chris says, do the Mariners have a shot at winning the division, or is the wild card their focus?
They have a shot right now because they're 2 games back of the Astros. I think realistically it's pretty tough to look at the Astros and their rotation, the schedule that's upcoming, and say, hey, the Mariners are, have a great chance at doing this. I think their best chance is to hang in this thing and see what happens. You never know. Realistically, the wild card spot looking pretty good right now, and I think kind of lost in the whole shuffle of chasing the Astros. They're 7.5 games up on the Angels now for the wild card spot. That's a pretty good cushion. They've got to keep playing good baseball, lock in that wild card spot, and if you can make a run at the division, all the better.
Mike says, Nelson Cruz, how many home runs this year?
Yeah, Nelly, you can usually pencil in for 40 pretty consistently. This is a guy who has had the most home runs in the majors over the last 4 years. Got off to a little bit of a slow start, but I think as we sit here today, I believe it's 7 homers in the last 9 or 10 games. Nelly, when he heats up, hits homers like anybody. Hit one here last night at Yankee Stadium. Loves to hit it here in New York, Boston. These are places Nelly can put up some numbers. Baltimore, this could be a very good road trip for Nelly. I'm going to bet, if I had to, he's going to be over 35 when this season ends. And he's as he gets older, he just kind of keeps hitting. So it's fun to watch Nelly in the middle of that lineup.
Andrew says, do you think Marco Gonzales is the real deal?
Marco has been probably, and along with Wade LeBlanc, the best stories on this team this year. Do I think he's a real deal? Yeah, this guy was a first-round draft pick when he came up. He's a talented kid. Was a All-American at Gonzaga, and Mariners kind of fans, I think last year kind of got their first impression of Marco as a guy who struggled a little bit when he came up to the majors, just a year off to Tommy John. I think this year we've seen what's closer to the real Marco. He's a talented pitcher. Is he an all-star pitcher? Probably not yet, but he's certainly got the stuff to be a top end of the rotation guy, and we've seen it. He's been him and Paxton, I think, really carried this rotation early, along with LeBlanc coming on later, and Mike Leake's consistency. So, yeah, I think Marco's for real. What we've seen, I think he can keep doing that, and that's a big part of this team's future. Hey, thanks for watching us on the Beat Reporters Inbox and MLB.com, presented by Edward Jones. Tune in again next time. It's good talking to you guys.